This is junk. The declaration was casual, almost bored, as if Marcus Chen were commenting on the weather. He stood in the cramped watch repair shop, holding up a vintage pocket watch between his thumb and forefinger like it was contaminated. The watch was old, brass case tarnished, crystal scratched, hands frozen at 3:47. Behind the workbench sat Henri Dubois. At 94, his frame was thin, his hands spotted with age, but his fingers moved with surgical precision as he worked on a disassembled movement under a magnifying glass. He didn't look up at Marcus's assessment. He'd heard worse. Mechanical watches are obsolete, Marcus continued, pulling out his smartwatch, a limited edition worth $15,000. This has GPS, heart rate monitoring, satellite connectivity. What does that thing do? Tell time. My phone does that. Henri's tweezers paused for just a moment. Then he set them down, carefully, and finally looked up at the young collector standing in his shop. Monsieur, Henri said softly, with a faint French accent, watches do not only tell time. They tell stories. Marcus frowned. Stories? It's a machine. Gears. Springs. Old technology. Henri looked at the watch, the vintage pocket watch Marcus was still holding. That watch, Henri said quietly, was made in 1889 by a French watchmaker. That watchmaker's son carried it into World War I, to Verdun, and he survived because that watch stopped a piece of shrapnel. Marcus lowered the watch, now looking at it more carefully. That soldier's grandson, Henri continued, carried that watch into World War II, to Normandy, and he also survived. Now it is in your hands. You called it junk. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I was just. Your watch, Henri gestured at the smartwatch, will be obsolete in 2 years. A new model will come out. The battery will die. Software updates will stop. And you will throw it away. Henri touched the old watch. But this watch has been working for 135 years. And it will work for 135 more. If someone cares for it. The shop had gone silent. Marcus, for the first time, had no response. In the corner, at a small table, sat a young woman. Sophie Mercier, 28 years old, a doctoral student in history. She was writing her thesis on the French Resistance, and she'd made it a habit to come to Monsieur Dubois's shop, to sit quietly and watch the old man work. Sophie pulled out her phone, quietly started recording. She recognized Marcus Chen, luxury watch collector, famous on social media, full of arrogance. But Monsieur Dubois never talked about himself. Maybe today he would. Marcus recovered, reinflating his ego. Okay, maybe this watch has a story, but that doesn't change the facts. Handmade, mechanical watches aren't economically viable. CNC machines, laser cutting, computer-controlled assembly. They're faster, cheaper, more precise. Henri nodded. Yes, faster. But precision. He paused. Precision is something else. What do you mean? Henri stood, slowly. He walked to a small wooden cabinet, opened a drawer. He pulled out a small box. He set the box on the table, opened it. Inside was a watch, but not like any Marcus had ever seen. The movement was exposed. No case, no crystal. Just brass gears, springs, a balance wheel. And something else. Small copper wires. A crude battery terminal. And a timing mechanism that looked military. This, Henri said quietly, was made in 1943, in the basement of a bakery, with tools I made by hand. Materials I stole. Time I didn't have. Marcus looked at the box, then at Henri. This isn't a watch. No, Henri shook his head. This is a timer. For a bomb. Sophie froze at her table. A bomb. Monsieur Dubois made bombs. Marcus stepped back. What are you saying? Henri sat down, holding the box in front of him. The wall of 79 years had crumbled. And now, for the first time, he would tell that story. 1943, Henri said, eyes distant. Paris, under Nazi occupation. I was 23 years old, an apprentice watchmaker, working in my father's shop. Here, this shop. Henri looked around the shop. When the Nazis came, everything changed. Curfews, identity cards, arrests, and I I just repaired watches. Quietly. But one day, Henri continued, a man came. Jacques Renard, a resistance member. He asked me a question. Henri, can you make a timer? Accurate to 90 seconds. Marcus forgot to breathe. So did Sophie. I said yes, Henri whispered. And that's how it began. Henri described his first timer. September 1943. Target, a Nazi munitions train. From Paris heading east, to the front. Jacques showed me the plan, Henri said. The train passed over a bridge every day at 3 o'clock. We had to place the explosive under the bridge. But the detonator had to be timed. When the train was on the bridge, Henri showed the timer. That first, crude version. 90 seconds. We'd start it when the train approached. 90 seconds later, explosion. But if it was 85 seconds, too early, train not on bridge yet. If 95 seconds, too late, train already passed. Marcus swallowed. And did it work? Henri closed his eyes. Yes. The train exploded on the bridge. 12 cars. Munitions. Weapons. Explosives. All gone. Henri opened his eyes, tears in them. But on the train, there were French prisoners of war. Forced labor. And we didn't know. 43 people died. French. Not my fault. But I still felt it. The shop was silent. Only the ticking of clocks. Sophie stood up, approached. Monsieur Dubois, she said, voice gentle. You were in the resistance? Henri nodded. Yes. But I didn't fight. I just made watches. Timers. Precise. Because precision, mademoiselle, is the difference between life and death. Marcus sat down, shocked. How many timers did you make? Henri took a deep breath. 47. From 1943 to 1944. Each one different. Each one for a specific mission. Henri showed another timer. Smaller, more complex. This was for March 1944. Gestapo headquarters. There were files, names of French people to be arrested. We had to destroy those files. The timer was 15 minutes. Midnight. No one inside. We knew because someone inside was with us. A secretary. She worked with us. Henri smiled sadly. Marie. She was 19 years old. The explosion was perfect. The files were destroyed. But Henri stopped. But Marie stayed inside. The timer went off at 14 minutes 30 seconds. 30 seconds early. My mistake. I miscalibrated a spring. Henri's hands clenched into fists. Marie died. Because I made a 30-second error. Marcus's face was white. I didn't know. I'm sorry. No. Henri shook his head. You couldn't know? Because I never spoke. 79 years. Because remembering Marie is painful. Sophie was crying. But you also saved lives. 47 operations. Surely there were successful ones. Yes, Henri nodded. Before D-Day, June 1944, we had to destroy a bridge. Over the Seine River. The Nazis were bringing reinforcements to Normandy. If that bridge stood, thousands of Allied soldiers would die. Henri showed another timer. This was my most complex. Dual timer. One at 60 seconds. Another at 120 seconds. Two explosives. First one side of the bridge. Then the other. And it worked, Henri smiled. The bridge collapsed. Allied plans succeeded. And Normandy succeeded. Sophie asked, how many people did you save? Henri shrugged. I don't know. Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands. But I only made 47 timers. Each one saved lives. Each one brought pain. Marcus stood up. Monsieur Dubois, I was a fool. This Rolex, he removed his watch, means nothing. You are a true master. Henri smiled. No, monsieur. I am just a watchmaker. But sometimes, watches save lives. Sophie approached. Monsieur Dubois, can I write your stories? For my thesis. Henri paused, thought. I stayed silent for 79 years. Maybe it's time to speak. The next week, Sophie published the article. The news spread. Journalists came. Historians. The French Resistance Museum. And a retired OSS, precursor to CIA, agent. Albert Morrison, 96 years old, came from the United States. When he saw Henri, he cried. Henri, Albert said, "Your timers saved D-Day. We knew, but we couldn't find you." The two old men embraced. Albert spoke at a gathering. Henri Dubois. 47 operations. 12 bridges destroyed. 28 Nazi facilities sabotaged. 7 trains stopped. And D-Day succeeded. This man is a hero. Henri Dubois passed away 1 year later, at 95, in his shop, while working. He was finishing a watch. The last movement. The last timer. But this time for peace. The shop became a museum. Henri Dubois Resistance Museum. The timers were displayed. Their stories told. Students learned. Marcus Chen provided funding, restored the shop, and hung a new plaque. Henri Dubois 1921 to 2024 watchmaker. Resistance fighter. 47 operations. Countless lives saved. Precision saves lives. Every day, visitors come, look at the timers, learn. Henri's hands, forever, worked with precision. Now it's your turn. This story of Henri Dubois reminds us that the most powerful weapons aren't always loud or obvious. Sometimes they're built quietly, by patient hands, in dusty workshops, by people who never sought glory. Who is the craftsman hero in your life? Maybe it's a grandfather who built things by hand that still work decades later. A neighbor who fixes what everyone else throws away. An artist whose work saved someone's soul. Or maybe it's you, creating something meaningful while the world sleeps. Tell us in the comments below. Share their name. Share what they built with their hands. Let's honor the makers, the fixers, the quiet engineers who shaped history one precise movement at a time. And if this story moved you, hit that like button to honor Henri and all French resistance fighters. Subscribe to Echoes of Valor for more untold World War II stories. Share this with someone who needs to remember that precision, patience, and craftsmanship still matter. Tomorrow, we have another story from the greatest generation. One that will remind you that courage can be measured in millimeters and seconds. Until then, remember Henri's words. Precision is not measured in nanometers on a digital readout. Precision is measured in consequences. When I made a mistake, people died. Thank you for watching. Thank you for remembering. And thank you for honoring the watchmakers, the engineers, the invisible technicians who turned gears and springs into weapons of liberation. We'll see you in the next story.